let's get into now. You did 4 combat jumps. We're going to cover 3 of them during your time in Afghanistan.
Yep.
And I think this, I cannot wait to talk about this because this is unbelievably unique compared to, the average guest who might come on this show. Your first combat jump going into Afghanistan, not that much longer after 9/11. Can you explain to the audience what the objective was, what the mission was, and what you thought, like, I'm about to do my first ever into a war zone combat jump?
Yeah. So, I show up to the unit on 9/12, and immediately we get an intel briefing. They go, hey, as with any real world event, the first thing we're doing is, hey, where are airheads that we can get forces in the country? And we weren't looking for, a Russian airfield. We were looking for something that people wouldn't know that we were infiltrating using. So we found what we called Objective Rhino, which is a place that had landed airplanes to bring rich people in to go hunting and shit like that. But it was a dirt strip in the middle of nowhere. Um, as things evolved over the next few weeks, the different units got their taskings, and Delta was going after Mullah Omar, the lead planner for 9/11, and we knew it was a long helicopter flight for them to get there. We actually inserted some weather guys in combat control and PJs on the border of Afghanistan and Pakistan to gather environmentals, and all the information they passed back basically said, here's the amount of fuel helicopters need to get to the target. Here's the amount of weight they can carry. So it changed the aircraft loads for the helicopters. What we knew is the helicopters could get there, but they couldn't get home. So we said, okay, Objective Rhino is going to be a forward area refueling point and rearming point. Um, so as they launched to go do their target at Mullah Omar's place, we jumped in, um, and we did something that had never done before in combat. We surveyed an LZ, a landing zone, in a single period of darkness. So we over the next 30 days beforehand, or the prior 30 days, we practiced every day. How can we jump in, get the minimum amount of information required, send it back to headquarters, have headquarters say, yes, we can land airplanes on it, and have them land on it in the same period of darkness. And we got it down to 4 hours. From the time we left the airplane to the time we were able to put planes on the ground with a new survey that gave the Air Force reasonable assurity that we weren't going to sink an aircraft in the middle of the desert. Um, with 4 hours, and something we'd never done before. The closest to that was Desert One back in 1979. We were trying to land airplanes to go do the Iran hostage rescue. Um, so, as leading up to that, how did I feel? Like I had dueling emotions, right? First off, we were all angry. We were fucking pissed about what happened in 9/11. We just wanted to go get vengeance. That was absolutely top of mind. We wanted to make sure we did it smartly and didn't want to relive uh, what happened at Desert One in 1979, 1980 time period. Um, and then we were excited. We were going, hey, man, we're going to go do this thing we've trained our whole lives to go do. The average age of the guys on that jump, I was in it 14 years. I think the average time in was probably 12 years. So we had a really seasoned team of guys. Um, and we were excited to go do the job. Counterbalance that with every event up to 9/11, you would spin up and you would not go somewhere. It's not the first time I was ready to parachute. So my first preparation to parachute in combat wasn't post 9/11. It was actually 1994, getting ready to go into Haiti. I was on an airplane with the parachute on my back. We were getting ready to taxi down the runway, and Jimmy Carter intervened and got in the way of my first combat jump. Um, so as we're preparing for October 19th, we're like, yeah, it's not really going to go. Some jackass is going to get involved, and we're not going to go do our job. But leading up to it, we prepared every single night to say what's going to happen. We all got on a plane on October 19th. We're kind of looking at each other like, yeah, this isn't going to happen. We got this 4 hour plane ride. And the whole time, like a teammate of mine, Kyle Stammer, who's sitting off to the right of me, we just kind of kept looking at each other like, is this going to go? Is it going to go? Where you know it, man, we're standing up. The Rangers in the aircraft are saying the Ranger Creed, which is what they do before they do a jump. And we're like, holy shit, this is going to happen. Doors open, and before you know it, we're out of the airplane. I'm like, holy fuck, we just jumped into combat. And so it was pretty cool until I hit the ground, because it was a higher elevation drop zone. So I think it was 3,300 feet. Parachutes fall faster at higher altitudes. So you hit the ground harder when you're landing at 3,300 feet than you are if you're hitting at mean sea level. I hit the ground like a sack of shit. It took all the air out of me. Um, got my shit together, and then moved out and did my job that night. It is really, really neat. And, you know, for us, the coveted position on the airfield is to be the team leader or the air traffic controller, because that's where all the shit's happening. And to show you how talented of a team we had, I was in 14 years and I was a guy working on the runway. I was a guy taking measurements to see uh, how hard is the ground and how many aircraft can we land on it before we destroy this airfield. So I was a nug on this airfield with a team of, I think we had 19 guys maybe, and I was just a nug. I was what we would now send an E4 to go do. They had an E7 do.
So are you doing all this under night vision, or was the
Oh yeah,
moon out? Oh, so you're all under night vision.
oh yeah, yeah.
That's wild. And I assume it's not the now they got the four tube ones, like the really
Right, right.
like the space alien type gear. What was the night vision you were using back in 2001? Did that make your job pretty difficult, or was it still clear enough that you could do it pretty well?
Yeah, by this time, night vision had evolved. So, like back in the PVS-5, PVS-7 days, they were these monocles that really they were horrible. By this point, I think we had PVS-11s, which were made for flyers. They had pretty good acuity, a little bit of depth perception. They were decent. But the thing about it is there was almost no illumination when we hit the ground. So your night vision goggles only work as well as they could take in ambient light. Um, and because we're in the middle of the desert, there were um, no landmarks. You couldn't look at a building or a runway and go, "Hey, I know I'm on runway 20, so that means it heads north northwest." You kind of had to find your way around. So when I hit the ground, the only land reference point I had was where an AC-130 had engaged a target, and I knew the target they were going after. So I went, "Okay, that explosion over there must be this part of the objective," and that was the only thing that gave me my orientation. Um, we weren't as adept at using GPSs at the time. It was probably the first generation of E-Trex GPS that you would have on your shoulder, but we just weren't using them a whole lot at that point. So while I had it there, it wasn't something I was quickly referencing. 3 years, fast forward 3 years, and guys had them on the wrist, and they were referencing them really well. So it was pretty disorienting. We got on the ground. But once I got to the proposed runway, if you will, I knew where I was, and we were able to orient pretty quickly.
And how long after you guys land and take care of business and get your mission done does it take for American planes to show up at this airfield? And what are they bringing Rangers? Who are these? Are they bringing supplies? Like the planes that first come in, what are they bringing with them?
Yeah, so our goal is to be able to land aircraft pretty quickly. So we got on the ground. In this case, since we had to survey it, it was 4 hours. We did a survey. We had to pass all that information back. I had to go to higher headquarters for them to go, "Yes, you can land a plane on there." And put this in perspective, we were jumping in fully knowing full well that we might not be able to land airplanes. So now we've jumped all these people in and we can't get them out. Like that was part of the risk of this mission. Um, so after we collected all our data and we sent it up, we're back saying, "Yes, you'll be able to land airplanes." On the 4 hour mark, we landed planes, and they were bringing in fuel. It's what they were bringing in. We landed 130s with fuel in the back of them so that the helicopters coming off the objective come back and refuel, and they can make it home, which is exactly what we did.
And on Operation, I'm sorry, not Operation. It's called the sorry, what was the name of the guy that the other team was going after?
Omar,
Omar.
yeah,
Yeah, that was Operation Gecko, correct?
it
Or
was
Objective
objective.
Gecko.
Yeah.
How close didn't they? Oh, I mean, they narrowly missed him on the timing. Is that correct? That he just barely got away from him?
Yeah, it's that's what Intel told us. I couldn't verify any of that. I know that the guys got on target. They met a fair amount of resistance. They killed a shitload of people, but they didn't get Mullah Omar on that hit.
Gotcha. I think this is what's so neat about having an Air Force CCT on the show is we're talking about building airfields, night missions. I mean, this is like Tom Clancy level stuff. I'm enjoying every minute of this. Let's jump to the second combat jump. We're still in Afghanistan. The war is well underway. This is a little bit of a recce mission, correct?
Can we actually go back a little bit? I want to tie something together for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
So let's talk about Objective Gecko. So while us jumping in was pretty cool, the guys who didn't jump all went, "Man, I wish I'd have gotten my combat jump stuff." The guys who jumped in all went, "I wish I was on Objective Gecko," because Objective Gecko was going after the number one guy. But the way it ties together is while we're setting up the runway, these guys had hit objective Gecko on their way back. Before the helicopters were talking to our control point, I hear one of my teammates, Brady, over the radio. I'm sorry, it wasn't Brady, it was Mike. Well, my teammate Mike come across the radio going, you know, hey, Objective Rhino, this is, task force from Objective Gecko inbound your location. So now we've got combat controllers talking to combat controllers before the helicopters even talking to the airfield and coordinating stuff that's going on. Like, hey, this person got injured, this stuff's going on. And Mike is just feeding us information as these guys are coming in. At the same time, we got a vehicle speeding towards us, and my teammate Brady, who's standing right next to me, goes, puts his IR marker on something. He goes, hey, I've got something coming in. He calls the control point. Control point hands his AC-130 over to him, and Brady's calling AC-130 gunfire. So all in this little area, we're talking to the helicopters coming off of Objective Gecko, getting intel what happened there. I got Brady engaging. Not that I got it. Brady was engaging the enemy, and we were preparing to land all these airplanes and helicopters to refuel and get everybody out of there in a single period of darkness. So it was just a really neat experience. But that's one of the unique things about combat controllers is we're all over the place. And when we start communicating to each other, we fill in the seams, just like I was told when I first got to the 24th. Like, because of where you are and who you know, and you have a bigger picture of what's going on, you're able to have conversations that speed things along. And that's exactly what happened when Mike was on the helicopter and called us. We were able to pass the control point. Hey, we're talking to Mike. Here's what he's telling us. And it moves stuff at a much faster pace, if you will.
I mean, that's so unbelievably impressive. And it really does speak to how America's military ability to kind of bring all those things together to really get the job done. And Operation Rhino, if you want to hear about it, obviously there's a lot of stuff online as well. I know people who weren't even alive when 9/11 happened. They read about it in a history book, much like I read about Vietnam or World War II. And that's why I really enjoy interviewing people who fought in the GWAT.